see me?
Yeah.
And it's clicking off over there in a red circle. The numbers are clicking off.
Yeah. Let me get my other pair of glasses. Maybe I don't need other glasses. Let's see.
Don't talk. We're on the air right now.
Okay, yeah, 34, 35
All right.
seconds.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the mobile version of the Wiley Drake Show. We've been praying boots on the ground and prayer in the air all over this nation. And basically, what we're doing tonight is we're taking the prayer meeting, boots on the ground, to Hollywood. There is a special prayer meeting going on in Hollywood tonight at the Dolby Theater. The Dolby Theater is the headquarters for the Oscars awards and presentations coming up on this Sunday, on this Lord's Day. And people will be there from all over the world to watch movie stars get their awards and watch movie stars perform and watch them do all that they do. And so that's going to be going on Sunday. Well, ordinarily on these events, we come over here and get a hotel here in Hollywood on Highland near the Dolby Theater. And there we spend the night on Saturday night. And Sunday morning we go back for church, and then we come back over here on Sunday afternoon typically to pray for Hollywood and all those in Hollywood. And so that's our normal routine. But this year we're taking it a little bit different because we have been praying for Kent Hovind. We've been boots on the ground and prayer in the air. Boots on the ground in Pensacola, prayer in the air there, as well as prayer in the air here. And we are taking boots on the ground tonight to Hollywood. We're going to be there to go and pray around the Dolby Theater. And as we do that, we're going to be praying for Hollywood and all that they are involved in and all that they do. And so we're going to be on here with you just for a little bit, and then we'll be going off. And once we do that, we will come back, though, and let you know where we're at and what we're doing. We will do a little later show, a little bit later on. And we do thank the Lord for the opportunity to be here with you. And we do thank you for listening. And thank you for praying. We had some great news this week. Kent Hovind was able to be on the prayer line with us. Prior to that, we were afraid that he wasn't going to be able to because the prison system there in Pensacola had made it impossible for him to do that simply because they put him in solitary confinement and he couldn't get to a phone, so he couldn't call in. And so at that point, we were saddened about that, but we were praising the Lord, and we continued to be boots on the ground and prayer in the air. People there in Florida, people all over the country, and people prayer in the air here in California. From sea to shining sea, we prayed and we kept praying, and we kept trusting that the Lord indeed was going to allow him the privilege to come out of that prison. Now, that prayer was not answered totally, but it was answered in part because even though he was still locked up in prison, they did allow him to go into a regular cell and not solitary confinement. And when they allowed him the freedom to go into that cell, that gave him then the privilege to get on the telephone. So he did get some release, i.e. His voice was able to be outside the prison, even though he was inside. And the courts had set tomorrow at 9 a.m. for what's referred to as a pre-trial hearing. And we prayed against the devil, and we prayed against the demonic woman judge that was turning things so crazy. And so as we prayed for her, we prayed that God would have his will. And so we found out yesterday, not only was Kent Hovind out of solitary and able to talk on the phone, but that indeed the devil, the Bible says, when we resist the devil, he flees, he runs. Well, the devil is in those prosecutors and in that judge, and when we prayed against them and resisted them, they ran. They ran around all crazy trying to figure out what to do, and they didn't know what to do. So as a result of that, they filed a motion to move the hearing down. Now, they left it on the date, on the 20th, they left it there. But when they did that, they moved it down. So they actually were fleeing our prayers. The devil was fleeing and answering our prayer, because instead of having the pretrial hearing now on Friday at 9 a.m., it's going to be at 2 p.m. So that's 5 hours later. So the devil ran 5 hours away from the hearing. Now, we don't know why they chose to do that. Obviously, we know that it was because it was answer to our prayer. God indeed answered our prayer and caused the devil to flee. But what their motives were to try to get something else in order so they could do more damage or whatever, we don't know. We have no idea what their plan, their game plan is. But we do know that we are winning, ladies and gentlemen. The reason I can say that with confidence is not just to be an optimist, but to be a realist, because the Bible says in the last chapter of the book of Revelation says at the end of the Bible, at the end of time, we, that is the children of God, indeed win the battle. So the battles that we fight down here and continue to fight are battles that we will win some, we'll lose some. Over 8 years ago, Kent Hovind lost the battle because the court system, the judge, and the bad people said that they wanted to put him in jail. And they were able to do that, unfortunately. And so in that sense, he lost that temporary battle. But it is temporary. So far, it's been 8 years that he's been in prison. What a tragedy for him and for his family, his wife and boys, and the rest of his family. And that's why we, ladies and gentlemen, are upset as we are. It's not like Kent Hovind is just a bad guy that's in jail and we'd hope he'd be out. Because, first of all, he is not a bad guy. Kent Hovind has never tasted a cigarette. Kent Hovind has never tasted alcohol or drugs. He's been a godly man. When he got married, he was a virgin. And so he's a godly man. But he is nonetheless not a timid man. He taught how severely bad evolution was, because when you teach evolution, you teach that God is not real. You teach evolution, and people say, well, what's wrong with teaching about dinosaurs? Well, what's wrong with teaching about dinosaurs is that Yes, they were real. Yes, they were here, but they weren't here billions and billions of years ago. That's a figment of their imagination. And as a result of that, though, they said because the dinosaurs are here billions of years ago, evolution happened. And evolution did not happen, ladies and gentlemen. Creation happened. That's why down there in Pensacola, Brother Kent Hovind has a ministry called Creation Evangelism. You see, when you talk to someone about Jesus, about getting saved, if you teach them, oh, well, it doesn't matter what you believe about God and evolution, and even some Christians would say that, but that's not true. Ladies and gentlemen, either we believe the Bible or we believe the devil. And evolution is of the devil. I have taught that all of my teaching ministry, and so did Kent Hovind, and he got in trouble for it. And they began to try everything they could to come against him. And they could not come up with anything he had done wrong, so they had to create something that he had done wrong. They had to say, well, he moved money around from bank accounts and so forth, and they call that structuring. The structuring laws were first established so that the government could go after prostitutes and pimps and drug dealers and mafia and so forth, so that they could watch them and know what they were doing and moving their big sums of money around. Well, first of all, Kent Hovind didn't move any big sums of money around. He did have money in the bank that he had earned. There were two sources of income. Number one, he earned it as a pastor, just like I do. And number two, he sold books. He wrote books. He's a prolific writer. He has written over 35 books. And when you write that many books, you make quite a bit of money. And so he made quite a bit of money. And he put that money in bank accounts. And when he put that money in the bank accounts, later he took some of that money out because they wanted to help people just like we help people. They wanted to provide homes and food and clothing for people, and so they did. And they took that money out and they used that money to further the ministry of the church. Well, the absolute ungodly female judge said that what he was doing was like a vast criminal empire. And it wasn't. It was nothing more than a church taking its money out of one account to pay bills, to take money out of one account to purchase property, and so forth. And so they went against him and said, okay, that's evidence. And they brought those cases in, evidence, to the court, and a jury, unfortunately, found Mr. Hovind guilty. Now, it still is not even clear what they found him guilty of, except this whole concept called structuring. And they put him in jail for like 8 years. And he's been fighting that case with some legal assistance, some legal help, people that can help him. And in doing so, he understood that what he was doing was absolutely right. Not anything wrong with what he did. You see, when the city of Buena Park came against me many years ago, they said that I indeed broke the law. And I didn't break the law. I did not go along, let's see, I need Hollywood Boulevard west. I guess that's what I want.
Turn left onto Hollywood Boulevard.
And this is where I'm going. We're coming, ladies and gentlemen, we're in downtown Hollywood. We're on Hollywood Boulevard, and the very famous Highway 101. Highway 101 goes right through LA and Hollywood, and as it branches off into other areas, it is Highway 1 and Highway 101. So anyway, Ken Hovind went to prison, and while he's been in prison, he's done everything that he possibly can to fight these legal issues. And they would not.
Mile, turn right onto North Gower Street.
They would not allow him to get any help, any legal help. And so he decided that if he couldn't get legal help, he would do his own legal help. So he began to study in the library and study the books and take advice from lawyers and so forth. And at that point, he learned and began to apply his expertise to trying to help himself get out of jail. Well, while he did that, and when he did that, the interesting thing about it is that they said you cannot use the mail system in the prison for legal help. Well, what was he to do? How was he going to do it? He couldn't get out of jail, and so he had to use the mail system. Well, even though he has served 8 years of his time, they're now charging him with abusing the federal mail system, i.e. the prison.
Turn right onto North Gower Street.
I don't want to turn right. The bottom line, folks, is he's been illegally charged and is
Turn right onto Argyle Avenue.
being charged ungodly crimes. And so we are in Hollywood to do a Hollywood prayer walk. We're on Hollywood Boulevard now. The area that we're going to be going to is 6801. I thought it was interesting. Just before we left, Peter said, "Pastor, you announced that it was 6801 Hollywood Boulevard. You made a mistake." And I said, "No, I didn't." He said, "Well, isn't our address here on Western 6801? And I said, "Yes, but that's not a mistake. That's a coincidence that happened. It just so happens our address is 6801
Turn right
Western.
onto Vine Street.
And the address we're going to tonight is 6801 Hollywood Boulevard." And so, at any rate, we're now, folks, at a very famous place, Hollywood and Vine. This is where Marilyn Monroe was discovered, on Hollywood and Vine. And so we're going to go down.
Turn right onto Northwest Powell's Avenue.
We're going to go down here just a little bit further. We're at 6327 now, and we're going to go down to a little further, and then we'll turn right, pull over, and sort of wrap our show here, only in about 15 or 20 minutes into the show. But we are going to wrap the show in a little bit and then publish it, and you can come back and watch it later. But that's where we're going to be going. Tonight we're going to be going to Kelly's Coffee and Fudge. Now, I know what everybody's going to say. Well, Pastor, this today is a day of prayer and fasting. And as Dr. Kent Hovind pointed out this morning, the Bible does not tell us we have to fast all day or a week or whatever. We know that there are many stories where Jesus, for example, fasted 40 days and 40 nights, nothing but water. I've done that before, but we're fasting on this day, and tonight I'm going to break the fast in a little bit, because when we go to that coffee and fudge shop, I will have some fudge and I will have some coffee. So we'll break our fast. That will not break our concentration, though, on our prayer time together. We will continue to pray for Kent Hovind here in Hollywood, as we also pray for Hollywood, as we indeed pray for the Oscars that are coming up, and as we pray for all that's going on. What we're going to do when we get down here in a little bit, if I can find a place to pull over, I will, and we'll sort of wrap this show up and see if we can then a little bit better find our area. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, right across from a place where you can get your eyebrows threaded, Peter, or get your henna tattoo. Now, henna tattoo is not a real tattoo. They don't use needles. They just use a pen, and it's not permanent. In other words, it doesn't go under the skin. The henna tattoo is something that looks just like a tattoo, but it does eventually fade and does eventually wash off. And so we're right across the street from one of those where you can go and get a henna tattoo. And there are other shops along here with various and sundry items of purchase and so forth. And we are in downtown Hollywood, and you'll see advertisements for things like psychics, and you will see all kinds of things here in Hollywood being advertised. And so we're about 4 or 5 blocks away from where we're going. But what I'm going to do is get over here to the right in a little bit and see if we can't go right and pull over somewhere up the street and bring this broadcast to a screeching halt, at least for now. And we'll come back a little bit later when we're doing our Hollywood prayer walk from the Dolby Theater, and that's where we'll be in a little bit. But right now, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're gonna go here. We're coming up on another street here. Not sure what that is, but it's Hollywood and Cherokee. In fact, I think what I'll do, since we can go right here, I'm going to go right here on Cherokee and see if we
In a
can
quarter mile, turn left onto Franklin Avenue.
pull up here and find us a parking spot. And Peter, do you have the quarters and stuff?
Yes.
Okay, let me do this. Let me finish the film. If you would get out there and put a couple of quarters in for us, not a whole lot, but okay, ladies and gentlemen, God bless you, and we'll see you in a little while.